Okay, good morning here at Richmond International Raceway. I'm Kerry Tharp from NASCAR. We're excited about being here. We've had a great start to the season so far, and certainly one of the big storylines for us this season has been the rookie class in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, and this is one of our top rookies right here, and that's Ryan Blaney. He drives the number 21 Wood Brothers Racing Ford Motorcraft Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center for Wood Brothers. And Ryan, you and I were just talking a minute ago. This is your first time out here at Richmond in a Sprint Cup Series car. You've been around the track, obviously, in the Xfinity race. But talk about the excitement of coming to Richmond. Certainly, it's one of those tracks on the NASCAR circuit that has a lot of history.
Yeah, it is. I like coming here, and I've had a handful of starts here in the Xfinity Series, and actually made my first start in 2012 with Tommy Baldwin Racing at the time here. So just really neat to come back to a place where you made your first start in a series, and it always has a little bit something special. So I'm excited to get out of here, and the first time in a Cup car. It's going to be fun to be on the racetrack and see where that goes.
If you have a question for Ryan, raise your hand. We've got a couple of wireless mics in the audience. We'll start there with Jim.
JimHunterMotorsport.com. Ryan, that start that you were referring to, if I recall, you turned a lot of heads. I think you finished in the top 10 that day. When you look back, obviously then your aspiration was to be a Cup driver. It's not really been that long a period of time. What do you think about the progression? Is it kind of surprised you how it's turned out or so forth?
Yeah, I look back on that night in 2012, and we had a really good run with a small team, and it's who my dad was running for at the time, so that's kind of how it came about, running for Tommy, and I kind of got the ball rolling on a lot of things. It got us in the door at the Penske team and Brad's truck team, and that kind of is what started this whole deal. So it's neat to come back here, and yeah, it hasn't been too long, and it's been a lot of fun to race a bunch of different vehicles and be with a great team like the Penske Group and now the Wood Brothers and Brad's truck team, and it's been a lot of fun to do it. So it's like I said, it's kind of special to come back here and kind of know that this is where it kind of all began to lead to this point. So it's been a lot of fun and neat to be already in the Sprint Cup level. I remember coming here watching my dad race for years. This was a place we'd always go as kids because it was so short of a drive. So that aspect of it too always makes it a little bit more special.
Other questions for Ryan? If you have one, raise your hand. We'll come to you. Questions for Ryan Blaney. Right here, Mike.
Hey, Ryan, Wood Brothers have had a success with young drivers. How's that been so far for this year and just working with those guys?
It's been fun. It's been great to work with them every single weekend. It's nice to be at the racetrack every weekend with them and running full time. And we got a little bit of a taste of it last year, running partial schedule, and now this year being able to come back full time and see them at the racetrack every single week and be able to work together with those guys every week is a lot better. Consistency is one of the biggest things in this sport, and I think that's really helped us out. And as we work together more and more, I feel like we're just going to keep getting better. So it's been fun to learn their history more. It seems like I learned something new every single weekend about their team and just the history of the sport and their team and how long they've been in it. So it's been a blast, and I couldn't be with better people. They're some of the best people in the garage area, as far as really making you feel at home, and that really means a lot.
Go ahead.
I know you probably don't feel like a rookie in a lot of ways because you've been around cars your whole life, I would imagine. But what kind of reception have you gotten from the older drivers on the Cup circuit, and how's that camaraderie been?
It's been all right. Being able, I ran, like I said, 15 or so races last year, so it's hard to kind of think of a rookie. I raced with all the Cup regulars a lot last year, and it's funny. I grew up watching them and wanting to race with them on Sundays, and now you're doing it. It's pretty neat to kind of race with the people you looked up to when you were coming up in the sport or watching my dad race and everything like that. So that's been neat, and Tony coming back. I've always wanted to race with him. He's one of the people I looked up to a lot as a kid, and it's really neat to have him back. But It's been good. You know, there's obviously some rookie hazing, a little bit, but it's been nice. And you know, I think you give enough respect, you'll eventually get it back, and that's what I'm trying to work on is giving enough, and you never know when it's going to start coming back to you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Right, Paul Woody, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Ryan, you have some experience on the Xfinity level. What are your thoughts on what they're doing to Xfinity this year with the heat racing and the dash for cash?
I think it's something different for sure. They do it this weekend, right? They're doing it again. Yeah, so they had it at Bristol, and I thought that was good. You know, it was some strategy being played, and I think this weekend it's going to be even better. I feel like, and I think it's just going to keep getting better as teams get more comfortable with the idea of heat racing and everything like that. And I mean, you saw last week the I guess I'll call it the feature couldn't have ended any more exciting than it did. So that you know, with Eric winning the race and winning the dash for cash, that was really exciting for me to watch, and I hope fans like that too. So I feel like as the teams get more comfortable with heat races and everything like that, it's just going to keep getting better.
Chris Knight.
Chris Knight, catchfans.com. Ryan, you received high praises through social media on your race hub on Tuesday night. How much do you enjoy being a guest panel on the guest panel, and also when does your next Xfinity Series start?
I like it a lot. I love doing the race hub deals, and you know, I did it with Adam and Alexander last week, and it was really, really cool. I like doing that stuff and kind of going over the whole weekend. You know, I think that's my second time I did the whole show, and it's cool. You know, you go on there sometimes and have guest appearances where you're there for 10 minutes and you kind of talk about your weekend, but we talked about everyone's weekend and kind of the outlook. And I think the more and more that we can get drivers on, you know, whether it's on broadcast, which I think is great right now with Jeff being on there every single week. But I feel like the more and more, and Race Hub does that great already, as they have guest drivers and kind of guest analysts, I guess, and they can really give kind of a first-hand opinion about the weekend and what they saw. And you know, it's always a little bit different just because we were behind the wheel and we saw a little bit more stuff. But I like doing that stuff, and I think it gives the fans a little bit more insight of what goes on the weekend. And I'm one radio sweetheart too, which I don't know how I feel about that, but it was pretty fun. So I like doing that. When am I back in the Xfinity car? Charlotte. I'm running a second Xfinity car. I'll be in the 12 car, so that'll be my next one.
Any other questions for Ryan Blaney? Back in the back. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Ryan, you touched briefly about Tony Stewart coming back to the series this week, being your first year full-time in this series. How cool will that be to race against Stewart on Sunday?
Well, like I said, I grew up kind of idolizing him and really looking up to him as a driver, and he's always been really great to myself and my family. You know, my dad owns a dirt track up in Ohio, and he's always come and do appearances and racing out there, and that's always brought a lot of fans. And he's given us a lot of advice at the start of my career, which helped out. And so he's just been a great part of our family. And you know, I've always wanted to race with him. I didn't really do that a ton last year because we were racing part-time, and then he had his injuries going on. But it's great to have him back. I think it's good for the sport to have him back, and he's just a good race car driver, and I'm looking forward to finishing out the year with him.
Matt, right there in the middle.
Matt Weaver, Racer.com. What has Brad meant for your development, not only since you've been with the team, but also what was your perception of him before joining Team Penske, and now that you've had the opportunity to work with him?
Yeah, Brad was a driver I looked up to before he got with Team Penske when he was running for Finch in the 09 car. I think Finch owned it. And when he won that race at Talladega, I was like, wow. You know, I think everyone was like, they didn't really know who Brad was, and then he goes and wins this Cup race at Talladega, and it was one of the most, you know, kind of wild finishes of that racetrack, and that's when I kind of first noticed him, and then when he got to the Penske organization, I think the next year in 2010, when he was winning races and championships and everything like that, I was racing late models, and I looked up to him, and he was really a great race car driver, and you know, his his outlook on things was more unique and kind of a different outlook than most people, and I kind of thought that was really neat and kind of changed your mindset. So I knew who Brad was, and I looked up to him a lot before I even started racing for him. And when I got part of his team, he was a really big mentor for me of helping me out, and not only in the trucks but in the Xfinity cars too. And he's still helping me out and a good friend of mine. So it's great to have someone like that who can kind of help you and teach you along the way.
When you talk about that unique outlook, what does he provide that you feel like is different than many other veterans or other people in the sport?
Have you ever talked to Brad? He has a unique outlook on anything, and in a good way. He just kind of brings a different perspective on things, and if you talk to him about whether it's even not even a racing issue, it kind of makes you think back. You're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. I never thought of that. So it's just kind of that different way of thinking. Makes him very, very smart as a race car driver and a human being, and that was something I tried to apply not only to racing but my personal life as well.
Anyone else for Ryan Blaney? Ryan, thank you for coming in, and good luck this weekend, and congratulations on a great rookie season so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.